Rio was a regular teenager who got hit by a truck and was reincarnated into a world full of magic. He got the ability to use water magic and only wanted to live a peaceful life by himself. But he soon becomes the strongest mage in the entire world without even realizing it. Rio, a 15-year-old boy, suddenly finds himself in a strange white place, and as he wonders what is going on, a tall blonde guy arrives there, telling him that he is dead. Rio suddenly remembers getting jumped by Truck Kun and asks the blonde dude if he is God. He replies that he is more like an angel who is here to send him to another world. Rio can't believe that he gets to be Isekai'd, and the angel tells him that he can live as he wants in his next life. Well, Rio is a chill guy, and he just wants to live a slow and peaceful life. The angel has no problem with his choice, and he tells Rio that the world he will be sent to has magic, and around 20% of humans can cast spells. Rio has a talent for water magic, and the angel tells him that he will be dropped at a safe house in the middle of a forest because he opted to live a slow life. There will be enough food to last him for 2 months, and there will be an invisible barrier that will prevent monsters from approaching him. Soon, Rio wakes up in the house in the middle of the forest, and he immediately heads outside to test out his newfound magic abilities. He then checks out his house that has some frozen meat in a cold room, and also an empty bath. There is a knife, and 2 beginner-level books on the table that tell him about the monsters and the plants in the area. After that, he heads outside again and experiments with magic, discovering that he can create water just by imagining it, and there is no need to chant any spells. He wants to take a hot bath but can only create room temperature water, so he decides to start a fire instead. He goes full caveman mode and tries creating fire by rubbing sticks together, but he doesn't have the required skill or strength for that. He gives up, but then he gets an idea to use the sunlight to create fire instead. For that, he decides to create a lens using ice, by imagining individual water molecules bonding together as heat is stolen from them, and ultimately succeeds in freezing the water. He then carves the ice into a sphere and uses it as a lens to start a fire. Thanks to that, he can enjoy a hot bath at night, and he realizes that he can create hot water directly if he just applies the principles of modern science to magic. The next day, as he has some dried meat for breakfast, Rio thinks that he must increase his offensive power because he will need to hunt monsters once he runs out of stored food. He starts by practicing to shoot a water ball at a tree, and even though he can hit his target in the first attempt, it doesn't do any damage. He is not discouraged by that and decides to shoot out a high-pressure water jet because that will have enough power. However, he can't put enough force in the water jet to reach the tree, and it just seems like he is peeing from his hand. Rio feels like giving up, but then he remembers that the angel told him that the key to using magic is his imagination, and he can get better at it, only with regular practice. So, Rio keeps practicing shooting a water jet till he can consistently hit the tree. And at night, he is able to generate hot water directly. The next day, he tries creating ice crystals out of thin air because he has always dreamt of using the icicle lance magic spell. However, shooting an icicle is even harder than shooting water. But Rio keeps practicing it along with his other water magic variations. Days pass, and he becomes more skilled at using water and ice. And one day, he decides to head into the forest to hunt for some food. He explores the beautiful forest and decides to gather some herbs and call it a day. But just then, he notices an angry boar staring at him. Rio freezes in terror as the boar charges at him, and he barely gets out of its way at the last moment. The boar simply knocks down a tree, and Rio gathers the courage to fight back. He covers the ground in front of the boar with a sheet of ice, making it slip. As the boar slides towards him really fast, Rio creates multiple sharp icicles pointing towards it at the end of the runway. The boar hits the icicles at full speed, and immediately dies after being turned into Swiss cheese. Rio couldn't believe that he won, and at night, he checks his book on monsters to find that boars are the weakest kind of monsters. He then notices that even though the book talks about beginner-level monsters, there are 2 special entries at the end. The first one is about dragons, who are powerful enough to burn down entire cities easily, and if one spots them, he should immediately run away. The second page is about demons, who are beings of unknown origin, and the book just tells everyone to pray that they never run into a demon, because that means instant game over. Rio realizes that the world is too big, and he needs to get stronger fast. So, the next day, he ditches his clothes to go full Tarzan mode, and ventures into the forest again. This time, an assassin hawk attacks him, and he barely dodges its first attack. The huge bird then sends invisible wind slashes towards him, and Rio realizes that this monster is way out of his league. He runs away, creating ice blocks behind his back to block the wind slashes, and then shoots water jets at the bird. The assassin hawk dodges everything, and then charges towards Rio at full speed, but he creates an ice wall at the last moment, blocking its attack. The bird loses one of its eyes because of the collision, and it decides to retreat this time, much to Rio's relief. However, while he was running away from the hawk, Rio loses his sense of direction. As he tries reaching his house, he suddenly finds a glowing lake, with a headless knight standing on the water's surface, along with a headless horse. Rio is stunned to see this, and then the headless knight turns its attention towards him. Luckily, he returns home in one piece and continues exploring the forest after that, fighting stronger monsters and mastering his attack magic. At night, he goes to the lake again, where the headless knight is waiting for him. Rio could not find anything about headless riders or dullahans in the book, and he wonders if it is because they are high-level monsters, or if they are not considered monsters at all. However, none of that matters because he is here to spar against it. Rio attacks the headless knight with a sword made of ice, but he can't manage to land a single strike. He keeps taking hits instead but blocks them all with an ice shield. He eventually gets exhausted and falls on the ground, but the headless knight doesn't attack him because it is actually training him. As he gets up, the headless knight comes towards him holding a small crystal knife. The knight coats the knife in water and then freezes it, turning it into a sword of ice. It gives the sword to Rio, who realizes that the headless knight is asking him to master this technique. Soon after that, Rio runs into the assassin hawk he fought earlier, but this time, it has evolved into a stronger version of itself, and has also lost all its rights. The evolved hawk sends wind slashes at Rio, who creates ice walls to block them instantly. He barely manages to avoid getting hit by the attacks that tear through his shields because they are much stronger than the last time. Rio is forced to run away, and he can only block the hawk's attacks. The hawk suddenly speeds towards him, and Rio somehow stops its attack by piling multiple ice shields in front of him. He tries to hit the hawk with icicles, but that doesn't work out either. And then the hawk uses a sonic attack to immediately cancel his ice shields. Rio realizes that he is in trouble now, but then the hawk shocks him both figuratively and literally by attacking him with a thunderbolt. The monster swoops towards him to finish things, but Rio manages to pull out his crystal sword and parry its attack. He can even slash away the invisible wind attack sent by the bird, and when it swoops towards him again, he manages to stab it through the chest. The hawk falls to the ground, and Rio walks towards it, realizing that he just met the monster twice, but they developed a really strong bond. He thanks the hawk for motivating him to grow stronger, and then pulls out the sword to let it bleed to death peacefully. Rio then begins to head home, but to his surprise, a dragon comes there. He figures that it is going to be his last day in this world, but surprisingly, the dragon starts talking to him through telepathy. The dragon asks him if he saw a black hawk, and Rio panics, thinking that he might have killed the dragon's minion. Luckily, the dragon seems pretty chill about it, and even compliments Rio on his achievement. He then points out that the weapon he is carrying is quite rare because it is the sword of the Fairy King. Rio can't believe that, and he decides to learn more about the world from the friendly dragon, who introduces himself as Len. They talk all day, but in the evening, the dragon gets called home, and he tells Rio that they might meet again someday. On the other hand, the angel suddenly finds that he missed some details in Rio's status. Turns out Rio is the second person in 10,000 years of the angel's career to have a hidden trait, and his hidden trait is called eternal youth. The story will be continued in future videos. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.